Thesis to you is this: public debt is a women's issue. National debt is a women's issue.
5 of them are men, are boys, male students. So she's the only female candidate in that race. And she had doubt to run, after all, as she does not want to be elected because she's a girl, because she's a young lady. She wants to be elected, become elected, because she has a better program, the better ideas for what to implement in this year, in this academic year, so to say, from the student side at her high school.
With participation from Bhutan, Bangladesh, India, Maldives, Nepal, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and some of our friends from Europe. This is really a testimony of the fact that a gendered perspective on foreign policy formulation and implementation is crucial for achieving an inclusive and result-oriented foreign policy outcome.
Second, some important developments on that topic.
And in terms of gender equality and the awareness of discrimination and the need to give women more empowerment, I'm a latecomer. I'm a latecomer because I come from a family of women and a family where the father, the patriarch, was quite happy to be bossed around by women. And I considered it, my due natural to be equal. There was no question about it. So it was only much later in my career when certain things and certain decisions made me start asking questions. The point is, when you don't suffer discrimination, you're often blind to it. And this is the platform on which our struggle as women to gain equality, to gain equal access to services, to bank accounts, to land, was built. At the same time, a struggle cannot be only built on this negative thing, on overcoming this discrimination. And I very much believe it's also about making the case of a positive agenda. And what I see is in many walks of life, there is a positive discrimination towards women. Why? Because women, being diverse, bringing something else to the table, are better in certain things. I'm an economist. I worked in microfinance. Most microfinancial institutions, being informal institutions, the banks will only lend to men, but most informal microfinance institutions will only lend to women, because women think longer term, think about their children, think about are serious and diligent managers. They have to manage a household. And so what's very important, my first premise, in a way, is that we have to look at the struggle for gender equality as fulfilling our potential. Imagine a country where half of the population is put aside, is marginalized. Well, this is what's happened in many of our countries, where women have not fulfill their full potential. Of course they have at the household level. They've done a lot of invisible work, but it hasn't come to public life. And that's the current battle. And I'll come to the term battle is important. I'll come to it later. So that's a long introduction to say that women and girls are key agents of our sustainable development, of our path to prosperity all of our countries look for. And certainly that is the case in the European Union. If I turn to foreign policy, it is tricky. You know, why foreign policy? What would be different about a woman's approach in foreign policy? This is a recent issue, and it's recent. Let me read you the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe resolution that stipulates, establishes gender dimensions in foreign policy, and it includes promoting better representation of women in diplomacy, development, and peacekeeping operations. And second, making gender and inclusion priorities in response to international crisis and decision making. Pretty standard, right? What's surprising about this resolution is that it's from 2020. That's less than 4 years ago. It's recent, even in the European Union. So, is there a particular approach of women in foreign policy? Women are diverse, so are men, and often these generalizations are part of the prejudices that women face. But I think many of us would argue that women put more emphasis on engagement and negotiation rather than confrontation and competition. And this is the stronger emphasis we need on human rights, on civil society, on multilateralism, on demilitarization. We're in an era of militarization, we've never had so many threats to our peace and security. We've never had so many conflicts. From the EU's point of view, we've never had a war since the Second World War. This is the first time we have a war of aggression in Ukraine by Russia on our borders. We've now, for a year now, had a massive crisis in the Middle East, a conflict that is expanding every day between Israel and its neighbors. Shouldn't we have an approach that is different, that brings in different energies, different qualities? Women can bring that. And I think when you look around, the women who are in power, who have decision-making positions, they're as capable, at least as capable, of dealing with complex foreign policy challenges as men. And they bring a different perspective. And it's this pluralism and the diversity that lies at the heart of constructive international engagement. My second point is about the need. I come back to the battle. It's about the need to make this comprehensive approach for women and foreign policy in this case a systematic effort. There has to be a systematic integration of gender equality through representation in foreign affairs, and the effort to pursue gender equality in all the actions, together with resources, of course, that need to be allocated. But it's this constant effort. And I'll tell you why. And it's a very recent and perhaps not glorious example from ourselves, from the European Union. You all know we've had elections recently in June. We have a new commission coming up. We have a second term for our female president, Ursula von der Leyen, who took some time to constitute her commission. And the first thing she asked, the commission is, we have 27 commissioners from the 27 member states. And the first thing she asked the member states was to provide her with one male and one female candidate. I'm really sorry to say that about 75% of the member states only presented a male candidate. That was back in, I think, late June. She could, these are member states. The member states have the real power. She could have just bowed and said, okay, well, that didn't work so well. No, she pushed back. And she spent a lot of her own political capital to try and have an equal commission. Didn't quite manage it. We are on 40% of women and 60% of men commissioners. But the point is, one, it's never take achievements for granted. We've had a better representation in the past. This effort needs to keep going. And the second is that we need to rely on leaders who truly believe in this gender equality. And I'm really happy to say that we have today my boss, the High Representative and Vice President of the Commission for Foreign Affairs, is Kaja Kallas, the former Latvian Prime Minister, and she will be out of 4. We've created the external service of the European Union 12 years ago, so we've had 4 terms, and out of 4 terms, she's the 3rd woman. And I think it really reflects a willingness to at least incorporate that diversity women bring into the decision-making process. And Nishal mentioned Dr. Arzu Ranadeuba. She's also, it's great, we should celebrate that we have a woman foreign minister in Nepal, not only because she's a woman, but because she's a really impressive, articulate woman who can take the agenda forward. In terms of what the EU does in the world, just a couple of words now on on how we try and advance this agenda, the gender agenda, in all avenues in the world with our partners. It's our own. It's the leading by example, and as I said, the examples are not always glorious. But there is a constant effort, and this effort also goes towards our work with partners across the world. There is a very serious attempt to address gender discrimination and to join hands with good-willing countries to foster gender equality in various domains and in international platforms. We do this through what we call the Gender Action Plan, that applies to all the external actions in the European Union. We've had this is the 3rd generation of Gender Action Plan, with now spanning across 15 years. And so we're on Gender Action Plan 3 that provides quite ambitious political tools and sends clear messages of the EU's commitment to mainstream gender equality and women empowerment. And this is done through a 3-pronged approach. That is to mainstream gender in all our interventions, to have specific and targeted actions in areas that are that affect women, such as gender-based violence, and more globally in the overall political dialogue. And so, more specifically, in this Gender Action Plan, we have 5 pillars of action, as we call it. The first one being that 85% of all our new actions throughout external relations will contribute to gender equality and women empowerment by, that's the end of this Gender Action Plan, 2027. that there is a shared strategic vision and a close cooperation with our member states and partners at all levels, multilateral, regional and country level. The Gender Action Plan also calls for accelerating progress in thematic areas of engagement, as I said, leading by example and measuring results. So it really tries to promote this transformative approach and address different intersecting areas of discrimination. For example, of course, paying attention to the most disadvantaged women and setting a more active role for women and peace and security. Lastly, in Nepal, we ground these gender action plans at the country level, and we have a country level implementation plan. And under this, this is where we apply what we preach. But I'd like to mention one program in Nepal under this plan that is a specific program called Empowered Women Prosperous Nepal, where we are working we've joined up forces and we've joined them up, it's not always easy, 4 agencies from the UN to support the 3 tiers of government under this new federal structure set out by the 2015 Constitution to translate gender equality into action. And the program also works with civil society. And it's these combined efforts that can make a difference. The commitment is there. The achievements have been many. As I said, there's been some backsliding. There is some resistance. It's also important to acknowledge that resistance, to be aware of it, and to keep our focus constant. So, the engagement, we need to engage, of course, but also to engage constantly in a systematic and sustained effort to really fulfill the potential that we would all like to see. Thank you very much.